Ricky Gervais. You won't believe what happened next. For decades, people thought they had Ricky Gervais figured out. The outspoken comedian, the fearless critic, the man who never seemed afraid to say exactly what was on his mind, no matter who it upset. He built an entire career on speaking louder than everyone else in the room. So when he suddenly went quiet, people noticed. No jokes, no controversial posts, no sharp observations about the latest headlines, just silence. Then a fan asked a simple question online: "How is Jane doing?" His response was only 2 words: "Doing well." That was it. And somehow, those 2 words revealed more about Ricky Gervais than years of interviews, award shows, and public appearances ever had. Because behind the fame, behind the comedy, and behind the reputation of being one of the most outspoken entertainers in the world, there has always been one constant person standing quietly beside him. Jane Fallon. The woman he met when he was just 20 years old. The woman who stayed through every failure. The woman who believed in him long before anyone else did. And in early 2026, their remarkable story took an unexpected turn. Long before success arrived, Ricky Gervais was just a young man growing up in England, with big dreams and very little direction. His mother hoped he would become something practical, something stable, something respectable. But Ricky had other ideas. He wanted to be famous. Not a scientist, not a businessman, a star. Like many ambitious young people, he was absolutely convinced success was waiting just around the corner. The problem? Success didn't seem to agree. When he attended university, he changed academic paths almost immediately. He experimented with different interests, trying to figure out where he belonged. Then music became his obsession. He joined a synth-pop band and threw himself into the dream with complete confidence. This was it. This was going to be his breakthrough. Except it wasn't. The records barely made an impact. The charts ignored them. The music career ended almost as quickly as it began. For many people, that kind of disappointment would have been enough to give up. But something important happened during those years. He met Jane Fallon. Neither of them knew it at the time, but they were about to become one of the most enduring couples in modern entertainment. They met while studying at university in the early 1980s. There was nothing glamorous about it. No red carpet. No celebrity connections. Just 2 young students trying to figure out their futures. As their relationship grew, life wasn't exactly easy. Money was tight. Opportunities were limited. The future looked uncertain. A few years later, they moved into a tiny apartment together. And when people say tiny, they mean tiny. The kind of place where almost everything was within arm's reach. The kind of place most people would see as temporary. Yet years later, both would remember those days with surprising affection. Because despite having very little, they had something that mattered more. They had each other. While Jane Fallon began building a serious career in television production, Ricky continued searching for his purpose. And that search took longer than anyone expected. He worked ordinary jobs. He sat in offices. He attended meetings. He filled out paperwork. Years passed. Then more years passed. By his early 30s, there was still no sign that fame was coming. Imagine that for a moment. Most people know Ricky Gervais as a global star. But there was a time when he looked like someone whose dreams simply weren't working out. What made the difference? According to Ricky himself, one major reason was Jane. She believed in his talent before anyone else did. Not because she was being supportive. Not because she felt obligated. Because she genuinely thought he was funny. She saw something special, long before the rest of the world noticed. And she never stopped reminding him of it. That kind of belief can change a person's life, especially when it arrives during the moments when you're starting to doubt yourself. Eventually, an opportunity appeared in radio. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't prestigious. But it gave Ricky a chance to experiment. To talk. to observe, to develop the style that would eventually make him famous. That radio job also led to a partnership that changed everything. Together with creative collaborators, he started exploring an idea inspired by something he knew extremely well: office life. The awkward conversations, the endless meetings, the managers who desperately wanted everyone to like them. The strange little social rules that make workplaces both hilarious and exhausting. Those observations became the foundation for a television project that would eventually change comedy forever. The show was called The Office. Today, it's considered a classic. But when it first appeared, the reaction was surprisingly negative. Many viewers didn't understand it. Critics were uncertain. Audience scores were disappointing. In fact, early feedback suggested the show might be a complete failure. Imagine spending years chasing your dream, only to hear that your biggest opportunity isn't working. Most people would panic. Ricky didn't. And the reason is fascinating. By that point, he had already experienced so many failures that he wasn't terrified of another one. He had survived disappointment before. He had survived rejection before. He had spent years building resilience. So instead of changing the show to please everyone, he stayed committed to the original vision. That decision changed everything. Slowly, viewers began discovering the series. Then more viewers. Then millions more. What started as a struggling comedy became a cultural phenomenon. The show spread across the world. Awards followed. Recognition followed. Money followed. Eventually, Ricky Gervais stood on some of the biggest stages in entertainment, accepting honors for work that almost never succeeded. And through every milestone, Jane Fallon remained beside him. Not in the spotlight, not seeking attention, simply present. The person whose opinion mattered most. Over the years, Ricky repeatedly said something that surprised people. He often described Jane as smarter than him, sometimes funnier than him. And whenever he was unsure about an idea, she was the person he trusted most. Think about that. In an industry filled with famous voices and endless opinions, the judgment he valued most came from the woman he met at university decades earlier. Meanwhile, Jane was creating her own success. She wasn't living in anyone's shadow. After years working in television, she transitioned into writing novels. And readers loved them. Book after book found success. She built an impressive career entirely on her own terms. That independence may be one reason their relationship endured. Neither person needed the other to complete them. Instead, they chose each other. Again and again. Year after year. People often asked why they never got married. Their answer remained remarkably simple. They never felt they needed to. Their commitment wasn't based on paperwork. It wasn't based on ceremonies. It wasn't based on public expectations. It was based on daily choice. A choice they continued making for more than 4 decades. They also chose not to have children. Again, not because of conflict or tragedy. It was simply the life that felt right for them. Instead, they built a home centered around companionship, creativity, humor, and a shared love of animals. And for years, that life seemed beautifully stable. Then came 2026. Jane Fallon shared news that immediately concerned fans. After routine medical examinations, doctors discovered early-stage breast cancer. The diagnosis was frightening. No matter how positive the outlook, hearing those words changes everything. Fortunately, doctors identified the issue early. Her prognosis was excellent. Treatment plans were already in place. She approached the situation with the same honesty and humor that had defined her entire life. Rather than hiding from the reality, she spoke openly about it. She acknowledged the fear. She acknowledged the uncertainty. But she also shared optimism. And she reminded everyone not to panic. The response from supporters was immediate. Thousands sent messages of encouragement. Thousands wished her strength and recovery. And throughout that period, something unusual happened. Ricky Gervais became unusually quiet. For a man known for commenting on everything, silence suddenly became noticeable. Then came that simple question from a fan. "How is Jane doing?" His answer? "Doing well. Nothing more. No lengthy explanation. No dramatic statement. No attempt to make himself part of the story. Because this wasn't about him. It was about her. And perhaps that's what makes their relationship so extraordinary." In a world where people constantly perform their private lives for public approval, these two built something real, something lasting, something remarkably ordinary beneath all the fame. Their story isn't really about awards. It isn't about television success. It isn't about celebrity. It's about loyalty. It's about choosing someone during the years when nobody is watching. Choosing them when you're broke. Choosing them when you're struggling. Choosing them before success arrives. And continuing to choose them long after it does. For over 40 years, Ricky Gervais and Jane Fallon have shared victories, disappointments, uncertainty, and joy. They've watched each other evolve. They've supported each other's dreams. They've survived challenges that would have broken many relationships. And through it all, they've remained together. Not because they had to, because they wanted to. Maybe that's the real lesson here. Finding the right person isn't always about grand romantic gestures. Sometimes it's about consistency. Sometimes it's about encouragement. Sometimes it's simply about staying when life becomes difficult. And sometimes the strongest love stories are the quiet ones. The ones that don't need constant attention. The ones built day by day. Choice by choice. Year after year. If this story touched you, let us know in the comments. Have you ever known a couple whose relationship stood the test of time? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more inspiring stories about remarkable lives and unforgettable relationships.